stinking Anderson, man, just trust Superman. God, what an idiot. I hate this. Oh, and now, of course, Allie has the pendant. Oh, good job, Anderson. What? What an idiot. God, I hate it. And now, of course, Lucy helps Allie get to the other world. Oh my God, I hate this so much. God, I love this show. Well, what's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 7, Anti-Hero. So this is one of those that I didn't enjoy it, but that's because that's the intention of this episode. It's to progress the story. The bad guys do start to get their way a little bit. Things at home are kind of going wrong, but it's midway through the season, I think, or somewhere close to midway. So yeah, things are going to start going wrong here, because if everything was all hunky-dory all the time, it wouldn't be as interesting of a show. You have to have the down moments to make the good moments feel even better. Yeah, it was not an enjoyable episode, but still liked it. It was still good in that sense. First of all, I will talk about the two moments that probably, for me, were the weakest. First of all is the scene with Sarah. I actually do like her story right now, because I've dealt with a broken home before, so there's that little bit of relatability that I can feel. Granted, I was a lot younger when my family broke, but there is still that feeling of you want to love both parents, even if one was in the wrong, blah, 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 all of that. There's a lot of different emotions mixed in with all of that. And so for her, it does make sense that, yeah, she wants to reach out to her dad, even though he did something so awful, but she does feel bad because she doesn't want her mom to hate her for wanting to talk to her dad. So it's a very difficult situation. I totally sympathize with that situation, but she goes and talks to the girl that she kissed at camp. And that's where I do find this a little, like, I don't think frustrating is the right word. It's more potentially frustrating, because if this doesn't go anywhere else, then fine, whatever. But I can see the potential of, what if Jordan finds out? Oh no. What if she does have feelings for this girl? Oh no. And it's just going to lead to more high school teen drama that I'm just not that interested in. Maybe it won't lead anywhere. Maybe it's just she needs somebody who has gone through something similar to help her deal with this, somebody to talk to that maybe will understand her a bit better than Jordan can right now. And if that's all they do with it, then fine. I have no problem with that, but I do just sense this feeling, especially some of the looks that she was given. I'm thinking, okay, so they are playing at this idea that maybe it wasn't just a kiss. Maybe there is something more there. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, well, here's that little bit of CW-ness that's probably about to sneak into the show where everything else has been really good. The other story for me that felt a little weak was just Anderson, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad story. I think it's very similar for me to Allie's story, where I just do not like this sort of self-righteous character that consistently tells themselves that they're right, convinces themselves that they're right through all of these little tiny things. You know, whenever Superman is not giving him the location and he's talking to his brother and he leads Anderson and his men to the Fortress of Solitude, which of course Bizarro Superman is not there, but they do find the suit that he came to this world in, and that's enough for him to just connect these dots that are not at all connected and go, I can't trust him. He's always going to lie to me. He's never going to tell me the truth. And I can't stand characters like this. Like, I understand for the plot why they have to exist. Again, for Allie, you know, she is so convinced of her BS, and yes, this world does exist, but she is so convinced that she's in the right, that she is the one that's trying to help this world, when she's definitely not. And it's just really frustrating to deal with characters like that. So not only did Anderson convince himself of all of this, but then he takes some of the XK, goes after Superman and Tal-Rho, and then kills Bizarro Superman, which, in my opinion, was kind of a disappointing end to that fight. I really felt like that was going to be the moment where maybe he gets his comeuppance, especially, what a great scene whenever he shoots Bizarro Superman with the kryptonite bullet, and he basically eats that shit. It was so, I started dying laughing because he shoots him and he just, just Anderson's reaction, what? It was so real. It's the only good moment that Anderson has had this season. But then, of course, he goes on to win the fight because, of course, the ex-kryptonite ends up hurting the Bizarro Superman, and then he just kills him. And I don't know, that's so much less satisfying for me because I don't want this high and mighty, self-righteous BS character to kill a character that was really interesting. And I wanted to see more of him throughout the season. But again, I know it's part of the story. I know the bad guys have to get their moments. He even takes the medallion to Allie Alston, which now, of course, is going to give her more of what she wants. So it's part of the story. I understand. Doesn't mean I have to like it, though. But yeah, the rest of the stories, I feel like all of them were just well set up. The story with Jonathan getting found out because he's trying to protect his girlfriend. I will say I do think Lois probably should pick up on who he's trying to protect, because there aren't many people that he would. You know, like to the extent that he's going to protect them, I feel like it should be obvious that if it's not Jordan, it's probably going to be his girlfriend. Who else would he be trying to protect? You know, I guess maybe she's thinking that he could just possibly be that good of a kid where he's trying to protect some random kid at school. But in my mind, the only person he could be trying to protect would be his girlfriend. That would be the only person that would come to mind in that scenario. So it's weird that she doesn't seem to pick up on that throughout this episode. Or maybe she has, and we'll see later that she already knew. But I do think that story was pretty well handled. You know, it is something that both Lois and Clark are very upset about, because they didn't expect him to go down this route. And it's even something that whenever he first started doing it, I was severely frustrated too, because he hasn't shown that capability in him throughout most of the series. You know, he's shown a little bit of that jealousy about Jordan at times, and he's shown a little bit of that jealousy about not being able to play football to the level he wants to play. But he never really showed the capability of, I'm going to take drugs to get better at this. So whenever he does, it is kind of a, what the hell, man? And I think the reaction to it is appropriate. Outside of that, the only other story really is Lana dealing with her campaign and dealing with her broken marriage, and what's his name, Dean, how he's trying to use that against her by being all, oh, I'm a family values man, when she just kicked her husband out of the home. And I will say that scene at the end, whenever she shuts him down, well earned. And also well done, in my opinion. In other CW shows, I definitely would have seen this as she comes in and she says something that everybody in the bar would have been like, oh, what a great moment. Oh, she just told him. And the audience would have been looking at it going, really? That's the big mic drop moment. Like, she would have come in and said something like, who are you as a man to tell a woman how to run her family? And the whole bar would have stood up and applauded in other CW shows, because that would have been their big mic drop moment to be like, oh, women are better than men. But that's not what they do here. She comes in and she throws his words right back in his face. You know, where he's calling this whole town a family. And that's why he's the best pick, because he's a family values man and he would treat everybody like family. She comes in and says, oh, everybody in town's family? That means I'm family, right? Who does this to family? I'm going through the worst moment in my life right now. My husband, I found out he was cheating on me. I kicked him out of the house. I have to deal with these two girls now that want to see their dad. And I don't know what to tell them. And you're really going to come after me in that moment? Is that what you do to family? I mean, that's a great mic drop type of moment that I think they absolutely nailed. I still cannot believe how much I actually am invested in this family story. Because again, it's Superman and Lois. I expect to be focused on Superman and Lois. But the Cushings have been a really good part of this show, and something that has brought a more human element, I think, to the show overall. Because yes, we have had some human family drama moments with Clark and Lois, but let's be honest, a lot of their issues have also been focused on what Superman is going through, dealing with their son having powers, you know, stuff that we can't necessarily relate to in our everyday life, but it's well done enough to where we can still sympathize. But the Cushings are really where I think a lot of people can relate to what they're dealing with. Maybe not the campaigning stuff, because obviously a lot of us have not dealt with family members running for office, but still the rest of it, the stuff with Sarah, the stuff with Kyle and with Lana, a lot of that stuff is real life drama that we do have to deal with and stuff we can sympathize with, and what would we do in that situation. So I feel like they've done a really good job with them. I don't know what to expect with Kyle and Lana going forward. I kind of assume Kyle will be able to work his way back into the family, because they've shown he has great potential for growth. You know, he's obviously been a bit hard-headed. He's been a little bit of a firecracker since the first season. That hot-headedness can get him into trouble a lot of the times. But I think they've shown deep down that Kyle loves his family. He loves Lana, and he has this potential for change whenever he does make mistakes. I mean, even Lana just looking at the sobriety tokens in that box, I think it sort of shows he can learn from this. He can grow from this. It's not going to be easy, and I'm glad that it's not just an instantaneous, oh yeah, welcome back into the house because you're sorry. But I do think they can work through this based on what I've seen from both Kyle and from Lana, at least for the sake of the girls. Pretty solid episode. Excited to see where the rest of the season goes. So on to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 8, Into Oblivion. This was another pretty solid episode. I will say some of the surprises were not really too surprising. Like, kind of figured Lucy was probably still working for Allie. She wouldn't just all of a sudden, oh no, this woman that I've trusted and looked up to and adored for the past several years. I had one moment of scare from her and I'm suddenly cured of my obsession with her. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So no big surprises there that she turned on her dad and Lois. I will say Allie's reaction to what happened in the caves was a little surprising. I kind of figured she would have seen this as like a good thing, like everybody going through the portal, even if it looks like they're all just disintegrating, which I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're actually somehow getting to the other side, and that's just how it looks to get to the other side. But she was very hesitant. I guess it kind of shows she is very good at making it seem like she fully is on board for all of this and she fully believes her bullshit. But in reality, there's still that fear. She's not entirely sure if this is what she wants. Like she's not buying into it herself. So it was an interesting little moment of self-doubt in a way. But then, of course, she still has the scenes that make me absolutely hate her as a character. She is definitely the Umbridge of the show right now. Because that scene with Sam in the interrogation room, I mean, perfectly just represents why she is just absolutely a awful character. And not awful as in like a terribly written character, just a character you don't even love to hate, you just hate them. They're awful. You want them to suffer, you want them to feel pain. Because screw you and your high and mighty bullshit. The other two stories were okay. Stuff with Jordan and Jonathan is still kind of the high school drama that, again, it's not bad. It's just not really connecting with me because I'm no longer in high school. So I look back at those times and think, wow, what a bunch of immature idiots. And I kind of look at them sometimes and go, wow, what a couple of immature idiots. And yeah, Jonathan, I get it. I understand why he wants to help with Candace, but at the same time, this is a high school crush, and her, oh, I love you. Oh, you love me? Yeah, what high schoolers think is love. You don't really know what love is at that age. So it is kind of like you're sacrificing a lot for this girl who, yeah, she's in a tough place, and I do sympathize with that. But at the same time, she made her decisions. There are other ways she could have been making money that are not illegal. For him to sacrifice all of this for her, I do have to go, what an idiot. And then Jordan, of course, goes to help, which is good for him. I'm glad he stood up and helped his brother. And of course, that ends up meaning he can't go to dinner with Sarah and Aubrey, which of course is going to raise its own set of high school drama issues, which it really shouldn't. And I honestly feel like it could easily come down to Jonathan just sort of tells her some of the truth, but not all of it. Basically explains, because I'm sure she would probably keep the secret about Candace as well, but explains what happened with him and Candace, how they both got attacked, and just explain that he asked Jordan to come help him. Because I'm sure Candace is going to go around telling everybody that there was some mysterious figure that popped up, and it's kind of like a younger, smaller Superman type of thing. So he can't tell Sarah that he asked Jordan to stop the guy, because then she would put two and two together. I still think he could say, yeah, I texted Jordan that night. He came to pick me up because this guy roughed me up a bit. I think that would easily fix the issue, but I don't know if they're going to do that. I feel like they're going to let this continue to build, let Sarah and Aubrey become closer, and Jordan starts to do more superheroing, which is going to push Sarah away, just to add that little bit of drama that, again, I'm just not really interested in, because these are high school romances. They don't typically last long. I would say 2% of high school romances actually continue late into adult years. Even the ones that get married, I would say 50% of them probably do not last that long, because you change a lot when you get older. And if the two of you change in completely different ways, then there's a good chance that the changes are going to be changes that make you less interested in that other person, and you kind of realize, wait, maybe this is not the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. So anyways, I'm going to stop kicking that dead horse, because I know I've mentioned it quite a few times, but it is frustrating how the rest of the show is very well set up, very mature, very well written, and yet they still try to treat these high school romances as if they are these really deep, really meaningful things. I'm sorry, but most of them are not. As far as the stuff with Natalie and John, I mean, I think it's pretty well done. I think with Natalie, we never really got that moment with her and Clark. We had a little bit of a moment with her and Lois that I thought was really nice earlier, but this moment between her and Clark where yes, she looks at him and she sees the man who killed her mother. Like, that is difficult for her to accept, and especially because she is younger, it's going to be even more difficult because she is going to be a little bit more immature, a little bit more stubborn as far as changing her viewpoint. Like, she's trying to, but it's still hard for somebody so young to wrap their head around that idea of, you are not my mom even though you look like her, you are not the man that killed my mom even though you look like him. I do think it's very realistic if this were to exist in our world that Natalie would probably have that trouble. Whereas we've seen John, he has been able to accept it a lot easier because he is able to accept this idea of this is a different version of him and this is not the same man that killed my wife. But I do like how Clark approaches it. I like how he gives them this chance to sort of be on their own so that way she doesn't have to be around him and Lois so much, which I do think will help. I think it'll help for her to get maybe little bits of him, kind of ease her into this transition of being in this new world. And I think it's smart. So I'm glad that they came up with this idea. And I do wonder where it's going to go from here. I wonder what we're going to see happen with them next, because I'm sure John is still going to want to help Clark. I'm sure Natalie's going to try to keep him from doing too much because she wants to keep him safe, understandably. So I don't know if that means she's going to work harder to make sure that he is safer in this suit. Like she gets a suit that is less likely to break down, doesn't need as much time to charge up, all of that. And also, especially right now when he's dealing with some brain issues because of the injury, probably tries to keep him from doing too much, going out and basically hurting himself again. The only other thing that happened was Kyle and Lana had a bit of a moment, which I thought was nice. He's helping her with these campaign questions. He gets her to sort of find an answer that answers the question about what happened with him and her, but also doesn't necessarily let her emotions get out of control, because obviously this is a very emotional topic to discuss, and if she goes in unprepared, there's a good chance the blow up that she did on him earlier in this episode, it would happen live at a debate, which would weaken her position to show, look, she can't keep control of herself, and anytime things get tough, if she's just going to blow up like this. So it's nice that she kind of has a chance to talk this out and kind of figure out how she wants to approach these questions. And for Kyle, I think it's a nice moment because he lets her have these chances to sort of vent a little bit, get these emotions out. Because sometimes that's what it ends up being, is just you have no place to go, you have no real outlet to release your emotions, and so they do build up to the point where something just causes it to snap, and it's just a release that makes you look kind of petulant and childish and just throwing a tantrum, basically. And then they do have a little bit of a moment at the end where you kind of feel like maybe there is that reconciliation that can happen, and it's like I said, I do expect that to probably happen at some point because they've shown Kyle has this potential for growth. And I think Lana, in the end, she's given him time. She's given the whole situation time, which I think is smart. But in the end, I think she realizes she loves him, he loves her, and the girls need their father in their life. And it's hard to do co-parenting. It's hard to have these two separate parents that are trying to do their thing individually and trying to parent individually. It's easier whenever you have both of you together and working through all these issues. Like I said, I don't want it to be something where they separated, 2 or 3 episodes ago. I don't want it to be like, okay, we're 3 episodes removed from that, go ahead and get them back together. Like, I appreciate the fact it's taking time, because cheating is something that it can break a relationship and it can really break that trust. But like I said before, if the love is really there and if the mistake was something that has been put in the past, has been rectified, I think there are ways to work through it. It's very tough. It takes a lot of time, but it's not undoable. So I appreciate the fact that, again, they're really approaching this situation with maturity and they're not just rushing through it. It's well handled, in my opinion. But with all that being said, we will move on to the final of these 3 episodes. I'll see you there. And now episode 9, 30 days and 30 nights, didn't it rain, children? Anybody else remember Schoolhouse Rock? Just me? Maybe just me. But anyways, this episode, pretty solid. I will say, I thought the beginning was a little odd. I feel like they could have shown Superman getting to the cave right after Allie gets sucked into the other world and him going across to the other side. I think they could have shown all of that at the end of last episode, and then the beginning of this one would have been, where's Superman? Showing the montage of the past few weeks without him, how the world's been kind of like, where is he? Seeing Lana's campaign slowly push and get a bit better. I think it would have made more sense to do it that way instead of have this episode begin with him disappearing and then continue on through the montage of where's Superman. It just feels like that pacing would have worked a lot better and a lot more naturally for what we're used to seeing with these episodes. Just a TV show in general. So I don't know. That was a little strange, but as far as the rest of this episode, it's pretty solid. Again, the weakest part for me is the high school drama. We have Jordan and Sarah finally breaking up because he cannot tell her about his powers and she doesn't understand that. And it's just, I mean, yeah, that was expected. I do expect at some point she'll find out and then they'll be able to reconcile and it's all going to be okay in the end. But it's just, it feels like I've seen this done so many times before. I've seen this story happen before. I feel bad for the both of them. I guess I have that sympathy for them because I understand both sides, but it's not like I'm sitting here going, oh, guys, Sarah just broke up with Jordan. Like, I don't feel that like I do some of these other stories. For instance, the John Henry story definitely touches some heartstrings. You have this real dilemma that he's dealing with because there is something to be said about the obsession that he had in trying to track down, her killer, trying to avenge her death, all of that stuff. He was obsessed. And it was very dangerous for him to dive deep into that hole of grief and obsess over that because of the grief. But now he's kind of gone on the opposite end of the spectrum where he almost kind of wants to forget about that day. He doesn't want to think about it. And some of that might have had to do with the head injury. And maybe that's why he forgot about the day. He even says to his daughter, I kind of just don't want to think about it. And that's the opposite end of the spectrum, which is also incorrect because you do have to remember that. Like, it's not something to forget about. That's not an honor to her memory to just forget about her because you don't want to grieve over her death. So it was a really interesting story, and I think they did a good job of showing both sides of it, showing why he didn't want to, but also showing how that is wrong. And then, of course, he gets to watch her video of giving birth to Natalie, and just that moment, you really feel the grief, but I think it's necessary. I think the grief is necessary because, again, you're grieving the loss of a life, but in doing so, you're also honoring her memory because you're not just forgetting about her. So yeah, in my opinion, really well handled story, and it really impresses me that John Henry has come so far as a character because I really expected, especially watching the first season, I was so worried it was going to turn into this jealous love triangle between him and Clark and Lois and all of this stuff. And when Natalie showed up, I was worried it was going to possibly dip its toes into that, but they've really not done that. They've handled all of these characters very maturely, and I'm very happy for that. As far as Lana's concerned, of course, she was going to win the election because they wouldn't have spent so much time building this up for her to just suddenly lose. And even if she did lose the initial election, I kind of figured there would probably be some sort of technicality they find out about Dean that would make sure he still loses the election. You made Dean such an evil, heartless bastard that if he did win, it would feel just absolutely awful. Like nobody would be happy watching this, finding out that he won. Not too surprised there. We also seemingly come to the end, I think, of the story with Jonathan because he finally comes clean after this whole explosion with the X-Kryptonite. And I do think this is going to become a bit of a bigger story because even Lois and her dad talking about there's a lot of money behind this. So the X-Kryptonite is not gone. But at least this story with Jonathan, for now, Lois finally finds out the truth, which, again, I still feel like she should have figured it out, that it was Candace this whole time, because who else would Jonathan be willing to sacrifice all of this stuff for, other than his girlfriend? But I think once she found out that it was her, and then also heard her side of the story and why she was doing this, I think for her, that's kind of okay, my son was doing this not because he's an idiot, but because he saw her situation, he saw Candace, he was doing this to help her out. And she is in a tough situation. I do agree with Lois that she made bad decisions, because she did. But for Jonathan's side of things, he's looking at this through young eyes. He is looking at this of, I'm going to protect this girl because I really do care about her. And I'm sure Lois is going to appreciate that and probably lighten up a little bit on him in response to figuring out the truth. So I think that's probably going to be the end. Obviously, this bizarro version of Jonathan shows up. Don't know how that works, but I'm assuming we'll see a bit more about that in the next episode. But the new kind of family drama that's popped up with the Kents now is the fact that Jordan is going around doing a vigilante thing under Sam's guidance, and Lois finds out about that in this episode. And I do find it kind of funny because the sequence of events really made me laugh as it was going on. You've got Jonathan telling Jordan, hey, you need to tell her mom because trust me, you do not want to get on her bad side. I've known this for about a month now. Really funny line. And then just as Jordan is like, okay, you know what? I'll tell her. Of course, that's when we see John Henry happen to let Lois know right then about Jordan doing this. And as she's walking in, hey, I've got something to tell you. Oh, no, I know. It's so perfectly timed. It's very coincidental, but there's something kind of funny about it at the same time. I don't know why. I know it sucks for Jordan that he had to deal with that unlucky turn of events, but I do think Lois got to see in this episode the value of that. I do think once Clark gets back, that's where this is going to sort of probably hit its I guess peak of conflict, because once he's back, it's going to be less necessary for Jordan to have to help out. And he's still going to want to, of course, because you could see all the stuff that he's doing in this episode when he saves Kyle from the fire tornadoes, when he dodges the one guy's laser vision. Those two moments, you could see the look on his face. He is enjoying it. It's a rush for him. And he will have to sort of temper that as he gets older. But for a kid, this is exciting for him. And he's doing good and he's saving lives, and it feels good to do that. So he's not going to want to stop even when his dad gets back. So I do think that's going to be the next big conflict. Whenever Clark does get back, whenever he finds out that Jordan's doing this, it's going to be a bit of a wrestling match for him to say, no, I don't want you putting yourself in danger when I'm here to do it. And of course, Jordan's going to say, well, you're putting yourself in danger. Why can't I help? Why can I not make sure you're staying safe? So it's going to be really interesting to see how that gets handled. All in all, I think that's about it. There wasn't really much with Kyle in this episode. You know, he gets hurt. Obviously, Sarah's concerned about him. She wants her mom to be concerned, but she's dealing with her own stuff. So their whole family drama at the moment is kind of being put on hold while the campaigning is happening. And now that the election's over, maybe it will get a bit more focus. But of course, she's going to be dealing with a lot of mayoral stuff now that she's taken over. So there will be, I think, less time for her to kind of think about what Kyle's dealing with. And it is kind of an interesting flip where Kyle's talking to Sarah about how he didn't always prioritize her mom. We're now going to see where Lana might need to prioritize Kyle a little bit because he's not doing well. Sarah found where he's living and it's not a good place. And it's almost going to feel like she should probably start to talk to him a little bit more, to deal with what do we do? Do we get a divorce? Do we try to make things work? Do we talk through all of this? And I don't think she's going to have time now. So it's going to be an interesting flip on that, where most of the time it's the father figure, the husband, that is too busy to deal with his family. Now we might see where the mom is going to be a little bit too busy to deal with all of her family stuff. But yeah, I'm having a really good time with this. We only got 2 more reviews left for this season, and I'm excited but also a little nervous because the show does take itself more seriously. It is more mature, which means there is potential for more serious, more heartbreaking moments in a show like this. Whereas whenever I'm watching like Legends of Tomorrow or whenever I'm watching The Flash, I don't really feel like I'm going to be dealing with anything that's really going to be kind of gut punch me, you know, like The Walking Dead. Anytime you're watching The Walking Dead, you're just like, okay, what's going to happen this season that's absolutely going to just hit me in the stomach and make me feel like I want to throw up. Superman and Lois has that potential. They haven't yet. We've not really seen that level of loss. You know, the closest that we had, I think, was losing Martha at the beginning of the first season, but that was more so like a death that set up the events of this show. We didn't really see in the first season, and even, you know, by the end of the first season, there wasn't really any major loss that just really broke me. There were definitely some heartbreaking, some sad moments throughout the season, but nothing really serious. I feel like this show could potentially have one of those gut punches. I don't know if it would happen this season. I know there are 4 seasons total, and I'm pretty sure the 4th one is the last one. So I don't know if that one may end on a bit of a gut punch, but there is that slight bit of concern for me, though, where I'm just sitting here going, is everything going to work out okay? Is it all going to be hunky-dory, happy roses, everybody works out fine? Because I don't know. I'm not as confident in that happening for this show. But with all that being said, though, those are my thoughts on these 3 episodes. So let me know down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these episodes? Let me know. We could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Superman and Lois reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.